All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board for the board. We hope that you enjoy. Welcome to episode 66 of the KissFAQ podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Julian Gill, admin on the KissFAQ message board. So yes, it is all my fault. Joining me today are Marcus Almighty. Mark, welcome back.
Greetings.
St. Louis Kiss, Lonnie. Good luck this season. And Ken,
Hello.
69th Blizzard. Everyone, usual gang, I guess, today. So, early news was a pop-up on my phone when I got up this morning was Ace Frehley new song up on iTunes, Emerald, which is, of course, a cover of a very, very classic Thin Lizzy song, which I'm more familiar with because of Def Leppard covering it early on in their career rather than being a fan of Thin Lizzy as such. I gotta say, I'm not a big fan of this song as Ace has done it, and Slash features with him on guitar, which I guess is another somewhat topical thing today, right, Lonnie?
That's right.
So, check it out on iTunes. It's up on YouTube as well for free for those of you who don't want to pay for it. But I prefer the live version that he's doing with Richie, because when I think Ace and a guitar war, I always think Richie's the perfect foil for him, always has been, in terms of what he looks like on stage, how he plays. I mean, it's like a couple of maybe Keith Richards going at it, maybe with a bit of imagery of Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park clone battle going on. So that's just personal taste. Some people like Slash. I think he's vastly overrated, but there we go. A lot of just like
Just little jabs.
just keep on. And revenge sucks too. So, all right. Topic for today. I thought, why don't we talk about what our holy trinity, to put a Peter Criss phrase in, of Kiss albums do we have that come to mind? And it's basically our top three albums, the three that we cannot be without. And I guess it doesn't even need to be your top three. It's just the three albums of Kiss of any era, of any time throughout the band's history that you really have to have together. They're your three albums that without which it doesn't matter if Kiss Alive, falls off the face of the earth. If you don't have these albums, you're going to be like a schoolgirl in tears because someone took your candy and pulled your pigtails. So I'm not going to go in any particular order on this. I think it would make more sense just to throw them out, and you can tell me if it's your top, or your third, or if you don't even want to rank them. They're unrankable. So, Mark, why don't we start with you on one of your picks, and what makes it that holy trinity for you?
Before Mark goes, can you do a live or compilations?
You do whatever you want. This is a free podcast.
Yeah. Okay.
It's free.
So,
Right.
You don't have any rules.
It's a free world. There you go. Rock and roll over.
so I think that it goes without saying that this, for me, as I've mentioned in many other podcasts prior, is my favorite Kiss album, period. Now, the reason why it is that way is because it has many memories tied to it for me. And I think I must have mentioned in one of my prior podcasts before, when I was on tour with one of my bands in the Azore Islands, we had two records that were of American making there, and the rest were all Portuguese. I couldn't understand it all at this guy's house that we were staying at. One of them was this one, and the other one was Deep Purple's Made in Japan. So this one was played like every day for like a week and a half while we were living down there. And it became a record that I never got sick of listening to, I found, as I was listening to it for that whole time I was down there. And even when I came back and years later, when I heard that they were going to reissue these albums, this is the first one that came into my head that I wanted to get right away. So, and it's also, I mean, when I think of the track listing on this, to me there isn't really anything weak on this record. I mean, sure, you could say that's based on opinion. Obviously, if some people might not agree with me at that, but I really like this. I can listen to this album top to bottom. I could put it on repeat, and it's one of the rare records I can listen to 2-3 times in a row, and it wouldn't bother me in the slightest. I mean, and also to the point where I have 6 copies of this record. That's probably nothing compared to some people I've seen out there, but you know,
Julian.
it's very rare that I would get that many copies of any record. So then this one here is my Canadian Quality Records version of it, which I don't know if I can. Oh yeah, it's right there. You can. I don't know if you can see that, but
Yeah, that was looking very shiny. I thought that was going to be one of the 2014 issues.
no, no, it's not. It's
got
just
it in the,
I got it in the foil, but I mean, even if I take it out of the foil, it's actually it's in pretty great shape. Actually, I was hunting around for a good copy of it, so
looks
and
good.
It's
yeah.
nice.
No,
So-
that's always been a great album. I love that you've picked my all-time favorite album because that's obviously going to be my number one pick always. As far as the studio albums go, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. I don't think there's a dud track on there, and there's never been one that I've felt the need to reach for the skip button on whatever I've been playing with, CD or cassette. It's just perfection, and maybe because it's the anti-destroyer is what makes it so fun, so listenable, that it was their reaction against the reaction to Destroyer initially,
Yeah.
and going out of their comfort zone, as perfect as Destroyer is.
And one last little thing about it, just sorry before I forget, Eddie Kramer, I think, did one of his best jobs on this, and it's one of those records I listen to on headphones I find very fascinating because I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this, but Eddie Kramer at that time in his career tended to have a tendency of recording his drums in mono. They were never panned out in stereo. Everything was just dead center, and he'd put all his guitars left right, which was very strange to do with drums because usually when they got into the advent of recording in stereo, they would pan out everything in stereo, overheads and the toms, but he never did that in those 70s era records that he did. He kept everything bam straight in the middle with the drums, which gave it a kind of a more in your face, punchy kind of tone to them, which I thought was interesting.
Doesn't that then just make it sound like everything else he did in the 70s if he's got those all straight down the middle?
Well, just the drums, right? I mean, the guitars and all that. He split them out and he moved them out, and he did give a stereo spectrum in there. But with the drums, he tended to just do that for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just something that he preferred to do for the tonality of it, or I'm not sure.
It's the one recording for me that comes anywhere near to matching the sonic qualities of the demo in '73, and I always like the sound of that. The original raw, rough and ready Kiss, and then you take that. From a musician's perspective, I don't notice the drums as much as the layers of guitars. And what really seems to work for this album, that makes it so good to me, is Ace and Paul are completely synchronized on this. You've got so many different layers and nuances of those guitar sounds. Ace's lead work, and I don't care if one of the songs has a binky solo on it. For those who don't know what that means, it's, to play an off-the-cuff solo like Binky would do. Just come up with something, not have Binky write you a solo and play it. Though there's nothing wrong with that either, for that matter, when it comes to Binky. But, the guitars are just so raw, they're rough, they're in your face, but they're not ragged. They're not, jarring your ears. They're not broken glass. So you add that with all the music and the great songs. I mean, you start off with I Want You, which is just a fantastic lead-in track. After they've done Destroyer and they've kicked in with Detroit Rock City and King of the Nighttime World, a massive 1-2 knockout punch, to come up with something like I Want You, which shows that they have grown, even though they're going back to doing things stylistically like they did before Destroyer. It still shows growth coming up with songs like that. I just love it. And finishing up with Making Love. I mean, just raw Kiss. I cannot get enough of that sort of music. Lonnie, what's one of your picks?
One of my picks, and I think for things like this, I think we all pick them not only just for the music on them, but like for the memories that album necessarily brings to you and the place in your life where you were. So for me, one of them, and this isn't necessarily in order, for me, one of them is Creatures of the Night. And it's not only is it a great album, start to finish, and it's, but you put it in perspective of where the album lands in their catalog of Kiss returning to their roots of being a heavier band as opposed to music from The Elder and Unmasked and parts of Dynasty. But for me, you know, it's growing up with that album too. It's one of the first albums I had as a kid. And I mean, and it is fantastic just from start to finish, you know, with opening up with those drums of Creatures of the Night and the production on there. I mean, you talk about the layers of guitar on Rock and Roll Over. I mean, the way the guitar sounds on that album, Michael James Jackson's production on there is just out of this world and just brought Kiss to another level. And it's really one of the, up to that point, one of the better quality sounding Kiss studio albums other than Rock and Roll Over, as far as making the band really sound heavy. It almost gave them a heavier feel than what they really are. I mean, they're a heavy band, don't get me wrong, but I mean, they're not, you know, they're not real heavy, you know, per se. But
They're not heavy metal.
exactly. You're not going to see them in the heavy. If you go to the record store, if, you know, you have a rock section or a heavy metal section, they're going to be in the rock section. They're not a heavy band.
Yeah,
But,
they're not filed next to Nuclear Assault.
no,
Slayer or something.
Exactly. But that album is just start to finish for me is just one of my favorites. I mean, and then you have the image of the band on the front. You know, I mean, it's one of the most iconic album covers of all time. And just start to finish, you know, and ending with, you know, I talk about the drum intro of Creatures of the Night, the way the album starts off with that punch and the just kicking the balls of that song, and it ends with another track that kicks you in the ass again with War Machine and leaves you wanting more of it. And you know, none of us, I guess Ken, we probably bought Creatures when it came out, and you probably just thought like,
Right.
God, thank God they're back. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
I
had
went
to.
crazy.
You had to have. That, like, my favorite band is finally back and doing what they want to do. And maybe I don't have to go to school or go to work or talk to my friends and have to be embarrassed to try to defend them a little bit because, you know, this kicks ass and there's no denying it. So, you guys know what my number one is, but that's Creatures of the Night for me is definitely would be my top three no matter what.
Yeah, Lonnie, that I've told that story before where I got the album, I think, about 2 days before it was released. 1 or 2 days before it was released.
Oh, really?
Because I knew somebody at Tower.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave it to me. He says, here, you can have this. And he just gave it to me. It wasn't promo copy, but he gave it to me. And,
Just got it in a couple days early. Whatever.
yeah, and I said, oh, cool, man. So I took it home immediately, and when I put that thing on, I was like, oh, man, I was so happy. I was calling my friend up and saying, you're not going to believe it. They're back, you know. So, yeah, that's a great pick. Great pick.
But just think of how many people had gone and didn't get to experience that like you did. I mean, there you were. You'd stuck around. You'd been through Unmasked. You'd been through The Elder. You'd had the, of Creatures of the Night. Oh, they're back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And in the meantime, how many people just jump ship in the meantime,
and they're
too?
gone.
And obviously
They
a
didn't
lot
get to- they
because
didn't
you
get
talk
to
about the
experience
attendance
it.
on the Creatures tour.
Yeah, I mean,
People just, you know, I'm just done because I can't. And a lot of people jump ship with Dynasty, and more people just got off board as time went on. And
I don't get that with Dynasty, why anyone would have jumped ship, because as far as the material goes, other than I Was Made for Loving You, I may be sure know something. I think you can point a finger kind of at Paul. The rest of it is
like Save Your Love, Dirty
straight
Rock.
ahead. You know, it's not
It's dirty
complex rock and roll. It's, you know, the kind of stuff that Kiss always did. Save Your Love, Hard Times.
Dirty Living?
Dirty Living is the same as Baby Driver overall, stylistically, and once it's been kissified from the original demos, I mean, there is absolutely nothing left turn on that album other than a little bit of a very slight nod towards disco with I Was Made for Loving You. Yeah, that's not a full-on disco song anyway. I mean, it's like, get real. So, you know, Dynasty, no problem at all with that. All right, Ken. So let's have your first pick.
Well, this is so hard. I mean, the only one that I have a match already, of course, with Mark. So I'm not going to even go with, I'll go over it quick. You know, Rock and Roll Over was one of my picks. And for the same reasons that, you know, Julian was talking about, Mark was talking about. I mean, it was the first one I really knew it was Kiss when I heard it, when the guy played it for me. I mean, it just hooked me, and that's it. I've been hooked since the beginning, and yes, the way that was produced, and the guitars and the sound, the raw sound, and it was perfect. And even the way they put acoustic guitars underneath
Yep.
some of the in that was just brilliant, and it's made it sound that much better. So I'll just get that out quick. That's a great album, and that was one of my picks. So I'm gonna go to another one, and I'm gonna go to, probably it was my second, I think, album I bought, because I had a Live 2 first. So a double platinum. um, I know it's not its own single album, like Hotter Than Hell or something, but it introduced me to all the earlier stuff. I mean, it
Exactly.
gave
It's
me
like where you were.
all those good, uh, songs from Kiss and Hotter Than Hell and Dressed to Kill and so on. I mean, it didn't give me everything, but it gave me such a great look at what they did up to the point where that album came out in '77. Though I know they remixed it, because when I started buying the older albums and I started hearing differences in the mixes and things, I was, oh, this is how it really was, and I could see how they changed things. So that was a big deal for me. I mean, that was the one that really, after Live 2, introduced me to their core material up to that point, and all of it is good on there. I mean, there's nothing bad on Double Platinum. I mean, even Strutter 78, I like the single version better than the album version, but it's all good, and
That's a
I
great
can
pick,
listen
because
to it anytime.
and I can relate to that too, because that was my introduction to a lot of their back catalog too. Other than I always talk about High Destroyer and Creatures of the Night, but I think Double Platinum was one of the first ones that we got. My brother and I got as well. We got like right when CDs were coming out. It's like, I think it might have been the first one we ever had on CD. And it was the first time I ever heard Cold Gin and Black Diamond and songs like that. So I mean, that's a great pick, because I can totally relate to where you're coming from.
Yeah, and same here. When I was first discovering the band, it and Alive were, well, this album costs only a little bit more than the rest, and it's got way more songs on it. And
Right.
at that point,
Yeah.
it's got some that are on that first album. So I mean,
Well, I'll just get that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm just gonna get that.
That's
So
what.
it served its purpose, as an introduction, which then made me go and buy the rest of the albums, because there was enough good stuff on there. And just look at that track listing. I mean, that is absolutely insane to think that is basically the core of the catalog to this day. The stuff that's most likely to be performed live. A couple of token songs here and there from the '80s. And you're less likely to get anything from Revenge, or we still never had anything from Carnival of Souls. So that is the Kiss catalog right there.
I think it's a great,
Yeah.
it's a great introduction to give somebody.
Oh
You
yeah.
want
If someone wants to be introduced to Kiss,
It's like, I never
that's a
heard
great
Kiss
album.
or whatever. Well, here, Double Platinum's pretty good thing to,
Yeah.
a lot of choice cuts, and plus the cover's shiny.
Yeah, and it's just a shame that it hasn't had sort of the same success as take Aerosmith's Greatest Hits, that 1980
Yeah.
album that sold
Yeah.
like 15
That's a great
million
point,
copies.
Julian.
Why has Kiss a song which has the same
That's true.
important core catalog songs of that band not had the same level of success, apart from being a double album and probably being a bit more expensive price point than Greatest Hits ever was, which was always in the bargain bin when I was in the early mid '80s, when I remember seeing that. But if you put it up pound for pound against that Aerosmith album,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter which side of which army you're batting for at that point, whether it's Kiss Army or Jean Jacket Army or Denim Army, whatever the Aerosmith guys called their lot in the
Aero Force One.
Air Force One. I think it's a time
Well,
maybe thing.
It's.
too.
I think it has more to do with the fact that they just had a better promotional team, Aerosmith, at that point. I mean, obviously it was out more. People heard about it. I mean, people buy it because when it's in your face and you hear about it, you go and get it. I mean, sure, we have that one very classic commercial with Bogart there with the revolving album there, double platinum, but that's about it. I mean, that's the only other thing I've seen for promotion as far as double platinum. I'm sure there was radio spots and stuff like that, but I mean, it's just possible that maybe there were more out there in magazines, and maybe they were out there more in radio spots. Or maybe Aerosmith's promo team just did a hell of a lot more to get that record out there.
Yeah, and of course you got to remember, what was it, April '78 when it comes out, that Kiss is at the height of their probably market oversaturation.
Exactly,
and they're about to abuse you even more with 4 solo albums. So 1980 Aerosmith's lost Joe Perry. They don't have an album coming out. They're kind of on the down. So it makes sense from that perspective. But if you're going to introduce someone to Kiss, even to this day, with all the compilations that have come since, I still think double platinum or Alive are your best things gifts to give to someone.
Yeah, as far as a straight compilation goes, it's definitely the best. Better than any Greatest Kiss or the Very Best of Kiss or any of those other ones. It's still not, to me, the best compilation they ever put out.
It definitely seems like it was almost made that way for people who were just getting into the band at that point. Like, here, if you want to know what they're all about, you just pick this record up and you'll have everything in one sitting.
One other thing, I would have liked for them to do a double platinum too. Stuff that was after that, maybe from Dynasty past, and put a double platinum 2 out.
Just think they could have done anything instead of smashes, thrashes, and
Yes.
which
Although that sold songs better though, ironically, didn't it?
It sold very well.
It's double platinum. So
I don't know. It's timing.
It's sickening.
No, it isn't.
when you think of those 3 songs on that album, and the remixing, the quality of it compared to the work that Sean Delaney and did for double platinum.
Mike Stone.
Yep. They did a fantastic job if you think of the producers' material that they had to work with. So, that's really cool. Okay, let's get into another pick, and I'm going to go. I was going to say the first album, but I can't. As much as I love that album from start to finish, and it really is, pop perfection. If it sounded like Rock and Roll Over sonically, it would be one of my picks, and it would probably be one of the greatest debut albums ever, apart from the fact it's still pretty damn good with the songs. So I'm going to have to go with Alive and not bother with any of the first 3 albums, because just like Double Platinum is a great representation of the studio catalog up to 1978, Alive is the ultimate representation of those first 3 albums, sounding as they wanted them to sound, allegedly, but it lets you pick and choose from the best of the material from the first album. There's a couple of things that I would love to see on Alive, but it's not. So if I've got to take one album, it's going to be Alive, because it's the one album I can play anytime. If I'm in a pissy mood, put on Alive. There's a smile. If I'm in a happy mood, put on Alive. I'm still in a happy mood. It's just like, it is probably one of the greatest albums ever for any band. So that would be my Holy Trinity pick. Mark.
That's a great pick. Great pick.
Yeah.
Well, no one's going to say, "Oh man, Alive sucks," are they?
No one's going to give you any grief on that one.
Like, what are you thinking?
All right. So, do you want me to respond or just show you my next one?
You can do whatever you want. This is your show too.
Well, let's put it this way. I'll respond because your selection was my number 3 selection.
Uh-huh.
Now, this I have like 4 copies of this now. This my very first copy, I know it's nothing compared to Julian has like 190 or something, but
He's got a lot more than that, I think.
No, just 80, I think.
Oh,
but I got the very first time I got this record was for Christmas from my sister, and I was about, I don't know, I think I was like 13 years old, and she gave me kind of the same story like how you kind of described it, Julian. When I opened it and I looked at it, she said, "You just need to listen to this. You'll dig it. If you like Kiss, this is the record for you." And it was the kind of same selling point that she used because at that point she had been into Kiss for a long time, right? Jean, my older sister Jean's like 7 years older than me, but she was right into it. She had the Kiss written on her binder at school and all that stuff, and she had all the posters in the room and stuff. So I was well aware of Kiss, but I'd never really listened to it too much apart from whenever she would just play it in her room, right? But I quickly got into this record when it came out. I mean, what's there not to like? Like you said, I mean, this is just like the best of the first three records, but in live performance. And really, what they missed out sonically in the studio albums, they corrected on here sonically on the live record. I mean, sure, there was a bit of tinkering in the studio with this, but it doesn't matter. To me, when you put on the headphones and you listen to it, you can envision yourself being in Cobo Hall, with them playing, and that's what it's all about to me. I mean, a lot of my favorite records are live albums just because of that. All the World's a Stage, and all these other like Yes songs and stuff like that. Those are the records that when you put on your headphones and close your eyes, you can envision yourself in those uncomfortable seats or standing in the middle of a big huge crowd and listening to this band, full blast in your ears, and it's just magic, right? I mean, that's what it's all about, right? And I mean, but this copy I'm especially happy with because the gentleman in the middle was the one who actually I got this from. There, thank you, Julian.
Oh, Lonnie's in the middle for me.
I thought it was Ace Frehley. Ace Frehley's in the middle on the album.
but the reason why I like this one is because this one is the US one that I got from you that has, just really quickly here, this is the Camel label.
So that's a 23rd pressing.
Okay. And but I also love it because this is the Alan Zentz master of it, which I really grown to love his work. I've been actually searching out a lot of his ones that he's been involved with, like even I got the 85 first album reissue because Alan Zent did the master on that, and I've been looking for a lot of his work, and this is one of my favorite alives now because of that, because he's involved in the remaster of this record. And again, thanks Julian for this, but I really love this record. I have the Canadian one, I got the Netherlands one also, and I got the 2014, and they all sound good, but this is my favorite sounding one. I mean, I listened to all four of them and compared them, and this is my one that I always pull out now and listen to.
Yeah, I keep meaning to make a little bit of a project of, people make a big deal out of the Ludwig ones. So if you look on the etching on your copies of Alive, some of them have RL. Usually they'll have Sterling stamped in the wax as well, and say that those are the most superior copies. I disagree with that totally. I've got some, they sell for a premium on eBay whenever anyone mentions that, and I look through mine. I've got more commonly, I've got a Ludwig one than a Zentz, and I think it comes down to which pressing plant used the best quality vinyl, obviously. Which stamper was used for the vinyl? Was it early in its production life, or was it towards the end where it's getting all dulled down from use? So, people make a kind of a big deal about the etchings and who does what, but it all comes down to that copy of the album that you get in your hands, and you like how it sounds. So that's the best way to look at it, rather than necessarily going into the matrix numbers. But Alive, what more do we need to say? I mean, put on the headphones, put on Peter's drum solo, 100,000 Years, listen to the flanger effect, you close your eyes and just imagine. The whole sonics of that album do take you on a trip when you shut your eyes and you just turn your brain off.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lonnie, let's have a pick from you.
I'm going to go with an album that we talked about not too long ago and sung its praises, and that's Destroyer for me. Again, first Kiss album I ever had, start to finish, just fantastic. I love Ezrin's production on it because I am a big Alice Cooper fan, so I embrace Bob Ezrin's production on that album. So for me, it's perfect. And when I discovered Alice Cooper years later, it made me appreciate Destroyer even more, because I could really see Bob's hands all over it after seeing what Bob had done for Alice, because you listen to those early Alice records before Alice really found his niche, and you can see what Bob did for Alice's career, and you can see what he envisioned doing for Kiss, even though Kiss got scared and didn't embrace it the way Alice did. So, but I mean, Destroyer start to finish, I mean, we know the songs on there, and when first time I saw Kiss on the reunion tour, they played 6 of the 9 songs on the first time I saw them on the reunion tour, and that's incredible. And they actually played 6 songs off of the first studio record too, so there's over half your set list just off of 2 albums. But,
can't go wrong with that.
But you can't go wrong with 12 songs off those 2 records. I mean, we were talking about the core songs in Kiss's catalog with Double Platinum. I mean, they're right there on those 2 albums. I mean, you can't, like Julian said, you can't go wrong. So for me, it's that album, and it's also, like I mentioned earlier, the albums and the way they mean, how they mean to you and how much they mean to you really goes back to where you were, and the impact that they left on you. Like I said, it was the first Kiss album I ever had. So, I mean, that's my introduction to Kiss, and it still holds a high place for me. And, I don't want we can go into Destroyer a whole lot, but we did that very recently with the production on there and just where it took the band to another level, whether some fans embraced it or not. I mean, it sounds obviously totally different than anything they'd done in the studio up until that point, or after that point. You can make it as well. It's totally different than anything they've ever done before or after. So
yeah, we can't talk about the innards of Destroyer without pinging James Campion.
Because James,
he wouldn't want to miss another opportunity to talk about Destroyer.
Absolutely not. So if you want to hear more about Destroyer, go listen to the show we did with James about a month or so ago. We delve into it pretty deeply. Yep. So, but for me, my Holy Trinity would have to include Destroyer. There's no doubt about it.
Good pick, Ken. Let's move on to you.
Okay, I'm having a hard time because
we don't want to make this
easy.
This is so difficult, because I love, really all Kiss. There may be a few blemishes in there, of course, but I'm trying to think. Well, I almost picked another compilation. I almost picked Chikara, that compilation, because it had a lot of mostly 80s stuff up to that point, to the late 80s. But I'm gonna go with Lick It Up, because even though I like Lonnie, I love Creatures of the Night, I love Revenge, I also love Lick It Up. I just thought that was a great album, a great follow-up to Creatures, and to still do it, saying, hey, we can do it without the makeup. We don't need the makeup. We're still going to be in your face. And that thing just rocks like crazy from beginning to end. Technically, no real ballads on there at all. No, there isn't. So that one, and the guitar work, and Vinnie Vincent's guitar work on that, and his help in songwriting, I think I put that on there because I tend to pull that out and listen to it a lot. So I'm just basing it on that I seem to go back to that for some reason a lot. I mean, starting off with Exciter, which is just fantastic, and all the other songs on there, like Not for the Innocent, one of my favorite songs. All Hell's Breaking Loose, I love that. I mean, it's pretty solid. So that's my other pick.
It's got that Kiss attitude.
Oh yeah,
going
take
through
no,
just
prisoners.
Just
right?
that had kind of been missing from a lot of their songs for a while, and they get the groove back with Creatures. I mean, you've totally pushed my third pick. It was gonna be Lick It Up, without a doubt, because from start to finish, it's like the first album. It's like Rock and Roll Over. It's perfection. It has the balance of fantastic material, great performances, great production, drumming that is monstrous. I mean, obviously, it's not quite on the same level as we hold Creatures in the highest esteem when it comes to Eric Carr being captured perfectly. So Lick It Up, though, as a balanced piece of product, is just like Creatures on steroids. They've taken it down a notch to make it more accessible, a little bit more radio friendly. They've balanced it out with, hard rocking, punch you in the teeth starting track. You've got your power ballad in the form of A Million to One, which that and I Still Love You, I mean, just utterly insane that Paul was writing that stuff in that period. And you've got the Gene feet stomping material. So it's the last great Kiss album from start to finish, where everything after that, I can nitpick at least 2 or 3 songs from each album, including Asylum, including Revenge.
Wow.
Where I can't really nitpick anything tremendously on Lick It Up. So, Vinnie Vincent. So that you've picked it. I've picked it. It's my third of my Trinity, without a doubt. I'm not going to change my mind and go off and try and pick something else because you mentioned that. I can't. I have to keep that one. It from the day I first heard it, which I borrowed a friend's tape, I sat there jaw agape going, wow, this is Kiss, huh? So there we go.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I've always looked at it like Lick It Up was like a brother-sister record there with Creatures. It's almost like Creatures was what they were, where it was their attempt to win back their crowd, and then Lick It Up was the record where their vision was more polished now, and they kind of perfected what they were thinking of to begin with and kind of smoothened it out and made it more like consumable for the big market, right? And I thought that Lick It Up was just fantastic that way. I mean, like we said, I don't think there's another record again there where you don't have to skip really anything. I love that record as well from top to bottom. It's not in my top 3, but it's definitely really, really high up on the list for me, and just mainly because of that. And I think that the album cover just nails it and knocks it home to just kind of give you that whole image that, we don't need the makeup to be a great band. It's almost like they did that on purpose. Like, here you go, this is who we are. If you liked what's inside there, that's more important. But it's almost like that was like a, kind of like a statement they were trying to make with that cover.
Yeah, and the first cover is really not that different than the first album's cover. I mean, they're both right. Just faces essentially in a purple shirt, but there's Pink. it's like a rebirth.
Vinny from out of nowhere.
Yeah, sorry, Vinny, can't help it. So, all right, who's up next? Mark.
It'll be you, isn't it?
No, I just did mine with using Ken's as a segue into my own last pick.
Okay, well, my third one was already mentioned, but I have to bring it up because it is one of my favorite records of all time. It is my number 3. Right?
Yeah.
And just out of if anybody's curious, this is actually the Brazilian copy of the record, and the reason I only have this copy. I only have this copy in the 2014. The reason why I listened to this one is because, much to my disappointment, as everybody else had, they didn't use the proper master tapes on the 2014 ones. So I'll always pull this one out because it is the correct copy, and I always listen to this. But getting to the actual record itself, I mean, I think we already mentioned quite a lot about this record. I mean, the drum sound is something that hadn't been heard. Geez, I don't know if ever at that point a drum sound like that on a record. And I mean, I think people seem to forget that when people talk about later on, like 20 years later, or 10 years later, about Metallica and the Black record, I think this album here was the kind of precursor to that drum sound in a sense, because when you talk about big booming, in your face drums, I don't think that album. I think of Creatures of the Night, right? And I mean, they did a lot to make that drum sound happen. There was a lot of trickery that they had to do. They had to, put studio monitors into washrooms and tiled rooms and play it back there and re-microphone it to get that certain kind of ambient sound that they were looking for. There was all kinds of stuff that they needed to do to make the drum sound that they achieved, and it was well worth the effort because it's such a great sounding record. And I mean, on top of that, the songwriting itself is great. I mean, I love the songs on there. I mean, even though there's so many different people that play on this record, whether it's solos or who knows what, the bass playing and stuff like that, it still is a Kiss record, still sounds like a Kiss record. And that's the most important thing to me. And like Julian said, I mean, you have songs like "I Still Love You" on there. That's just fantastic. And War Machine, songs like that. I mean, what more could you really ask for? And I mean, after having to sit through, Unmasked before, which I like, and The Elder, which I also like as well. I mean, Kiss fans were aching for this kind of a record to come out, and they got it. And unfortunately, it didn't pick up and sell as well as it really should have. But this record to me is very important, not only to, I think, Kiss history, but it's very important to me as a musician and as a person who likes to record songs and work in studios for, trying to achieve greatness audio wise. Right. So, I mean, this is always kind of a benchmark for me to kind of look at. If I want to make a record that sounds big and boomy, I'll always kind of reference this record.
Yep. Good points all around.
Absolutely.
So, Lonnie.
Well, my last one is, of course, going to be Revenge for my Holy Trinity of Kiss records. It's my favorite Kiss album from start to finish. I love the sound on it. I love the sound of the album. And we've all agreed, as much as we've talked about Revenge on the show, that we all do love the way that it's produced and the way that Kiss sounds on that record as opposed to what they had sounded like on previous records in the 80s. So... And then I love the songs on it. I love it start to finish. I love Unholy and the way that it's, it starts out. It's just like, I'll never forget the first time I saw the video and like, oh my gosh, that's Kiss. I can't look at the way they look at the way they sound. It's like we talked about it with Creatures that they were back. Well, they were back again with Revenge, with a sound and with a look that was missing. So, and then the other songs on there, Domino, and I Just Wanna, and everything else on there, I thoroughly enjoy it, start to finish. It came out, it came out when I was in junior high, and I think that's a big reason why. It's because a certain age, you're so impressionable, and things at that age stick with you more than things at other ages stick with you throughout time because you're very impressionable, and it just becomes a part of you. So. For me, obviously, is going to pick it. So for me, the third part of my Trinity is Revenge.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things about anything that we pick, whether we're talking about our Kiss Holy Trinity, that they probably have a very personal imprint on our, either our lives, something occurred at the time, whether it was, for me discovering Kiss, and, I could say the same about Asylum like you just did with Revenge, because that was my first Kiss, and I was discovering a whole different sort of music coming from, like, the Men at Work, Duran Duran, Beatles, John Lennon stuff that I was listening to primarily before, really experiencing heavy metal and hard rock. So, that's why an album like Alive, you remember what you were doing. You remember being in Music City in Binghamton, New York, and getting the cassettes down off the wall and looking at the track listings, and coming back and thinking, well, this album has more songs than the other. I don't know shit about the band, so that makes sense to my 14-year-old logic. Just like for you, junior high, 14 years old, and Revenge comes out, and it's such a striking visual change for the band from where they'd been the years before. I mean, it's probably the only time visually that they were as striking as they'd been in the 70s in their costumes and makeup, because I'm sorry that glam stuff doesn't quite cut it visually as a comparison. So that's the great stuff about these picks that we make today, that they all do connect, and everyone out there who's listening is going to have their own takes on it. So Ken, we need a third pick from you, don't we?
No, because
what were your three?
Rock and Roll Over, and
Double
Platinum, and what was my third? Lick It Up. So,
okay.
Because
you
Mark
actually
already talked about.
Yeah, you remembered yours and you didn't try and change them.
No, I could have changed it. I mean, and like Lonnie's, I almost, Revenge was close for me in that top three. Both the Revenge and Creature of the Night were very close, to getting in there.
It was hard to
It's a
come
toss-up.
up with three.
Yeah, it's very
It's
very difficult.
it's very hard to come up with three, but I don't think I would change my opinion of those three if we were to do the same show, 6 months or a year down the road. I think I might do them in a different
good
order.
picks.
I think I would still always go to the same well. But
Yeah.
let's give people something a little bit more to think about. What would you say is your holy trinity of albums? Albums, any band.
Yeah.
I mean, try and do this off the cuff right now. You're probably going to have the most honest response, thinking of stuff, and later on you can listen back and say, "Oh shit, I didn't say that one." But Mark, you look like you're ready to jump into the video.
Go.
You're set. Go.
This to me is the record that spawned everything for me to make a band. Okay, when I heard this record, it wasn't the first record I heard from this band, but it was the record that when I snuck it out of my sister's collection and listened to, it had such a huge impact on me that I listened to it constantly.
Yeah, nice pick.
Nice.
Now, the funny thing with this record, though, and I only learned about this years later, of course, was the connection to Kiss that this has, is that this is the same guy who did the solo record covers, did this cover as well, right?
And Mark mentioned for listeners, that's Rush Fly by Night.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
People
Sorry,
not
Rush,
seeing the video. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Rush Fly by Night. It is the second record of their catalog, and most importantly, it is the first record with Neil Peart on it. Now, his drumming has gone down through the annals of history as being one of the best, rock drummers, period. But I'll tell you something, being a big diehard and having them like they're here for me and everyone else is kind of spews down from them. I'll be honest in saying that if you want to really hear Neil Peart on fire, inspired, and happy to not be working at his tractor farm job anymore in St. Catharines, you put this record on because he's totally on fire. I mean, the double kick stuff that he does on this record and his triplet fills and stuff are just unbelievable. It was like he was trying to say, I don't want to go back to a 9-to-5 job, and I'm going to make sure that people hear me on this record. And it's just fantastic. And I mean, the songs on here, like By Torn the Snow Dog, it's like a precursor to everything that comes later for Rush on here. I mean, it's a weird song title, and the lyrics are kind of an odd kind of story to it, but it is the blueprint of what is to come for Rush from here on in, from there. And then you have the kind of more radio friendly songs like Fly By Night, right, and songs like that. And then you have like Anthem. You have what else? In the End, like you have so many great songs on this record. And I mean, it's a good mix of straight ahead hard rock and the dabblings of the progressive rock that they would become so known for as well in it. And I love Terry Brown's production on it. The drum sound is great on here. And for all you audiophile, record collectors, this is the Gilbert Kong pressing. So in case you're wondering, 'cause I know it's a big thing amongst Rush collectors, you got to look for the Gilbert Kong one, right? So I got that one. And I know that there's also there you go. And there's also apparently, I think there's a George Graves one who actually, he mastered one of my band's records. He works at the Lacquer channel in Toronto. So I don't know if he's a listener of podcasts, but if by any miraculous chance he listens to this, hey George, you're awesome. And so I really love this record. So I can't say anything more than that. This is one of my top 3 records, period.
That's a really, really good pick, and I gotta agree with everything you said on that. Just totally awesome album. I'm gonna throw mine, Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil. And my relationship with Motley Crue started the same day as with Kiss. Bought Asylum and Theater of Pain down at my local Kmart in Vestal. And Theater of Pain sucks ass, but it got me to go back and discover the first album, which is almighty, unbelievable, incredible. But what makes me take Shout at the Devil over that is the sound of both the production and Mick Mars's guitar on Shout at the Devil. That blows Too Fast for Love out of the water. And if I could have Too Fast or Theater of Pain sound the same as Shout at the Devil did sonically, I would be a happy, happy, happy person. But Shout at the Devil's got everything going for it. It's got thematic audio illustrations with the intro, the Children of the Beast. It's got the angry, rude, aggressive guitars and Knock 'em Dead Kid and Danger. It's got your kind of your 80s blueprint power ballad, Too Young to Fall in Love. That's a hell of a ballad right there. And, of course, the title track. So in terms of Holy Trinity albums, Shout at the Devil. Not with
Red Hot, though. You got to remember that song. It's a great song.
Oh, it's
my
fantastic.
God, what about that drum intro?
Yeah.
Holy crap. I mean, and that's the only album. You got to listen to the studio cuts of Motley Crue, because once you get into the live realm, Vince is a liability. But in the studio, they could all bring it. So, Lonnie, what about a pick from you?
Well, I'm going to go with Appetite for Destruction as one of mine. And I don't say what you want about Guns N' Roses or what they became after Appetite for Destruction, but you just take that album by itself, and there's no denying, in my opinion, that you'd have to put it in, anybody would have to put it in their top. We're doing top threes. I think you'd have to put it in your top 5 for almost anybody. It is just start to finish. You talk about albums that have no filler on it. That is one of those albums. I mean, that's one of those albums that you put on and you never hit the skip button ever, because it's so, and it's become, to me anyway, it's just become so iconic that it's just a part of Americana almost to me. That album is with music in the 80s and where it took that band from the streets of LA to becoming literally the biggest band in the world from 88 to 93, and until they became too big and it all just fell apart. But that album by itself, I remember I had it on audio cassette, because you gotta remember 1988 is when it, even though it came out in 87, 88 is when it really took off. And I remember having it on cassette, and I had you open it up, and you open up the cassette and you unfold it, whatever, and you can see the album lyrics in that, and it's Guns N' Roses, it had the picture of the naked girl in there with the bar across her breast, And my buddy, he got, I'm in 4th grade, and my buddy, he got his copy at Walmart or something. So or I don't know where he got it at, but his didn't have that, or his mom tore it off or something. I don't know. And he's like, oh my gosh, he's looking at mine. I remember you're 9 years old, but it's still just funny as hell, and I think about that. But that album, start to finish, for me is just, I mean, it is just perfection, to steal a word from Julian, what he said about an album earlier. From Welcome to the Jungle to It's So Easy to Night Train, those 3 songs in a row that kick it off, my God, it's just incredible. And I've never seen the band live, and I will get to this summer, so I'm ecstatic about that. I've seen Slash several times. I saw Velvet Revolver. Follow them as much as I could. But living in St. Louis, obviously we didn't get a chance to after July 2nd, 1991. And when they released those cities last week that they were coming to, I was like, holy crap, I can't believe they're actually coming here. But not Tommy Simpson, but the...
Fair?
No, I haven't either. But the rhythm guitarist that's been in the band for a while now has said that is actually from St. Louis, and has said that Axl feels bad about what happened here 25 years ago and would like to make it up to the city. At least that's what I've heard. So
you better watch your back then if Axl.
Oh, I know
it's
going to be security at that show will be freaking insane, but. And rumor is it's going to be at Busch Stadium, so I am super excited. But for me, Appetite for Destruction is hands down might be my favorite album. It might be my favorite album of all time, even more than Revenge.
That's a
You
that's
know,
a really good pick as well. I remember I've got one quick Guns N' Roses story, and that's again Music City down in Binghamton. I remember they were getting a lot of press before Appetite came out, so I went down to the store. I remember flipping through the cassettes there, and there was Live Like a Suicide up there, or Great White. So which one did I pick?
You
Great
picked
White.
White.
Yeah.
oh. I mean, you know what's funny though? I mean, you got to remember one thing. I think that that record, more than anything, reinvigorated American dangerous hard rock again. I mean,
Absolutely.
there wasn't a record that at that time around there for a long time. There hadn't been a record that had that kind of dangerous vibe to it, like Guns N' Roses had at that point. I mean, even when they started playing live, I remember I watched that show, the Live at the Ritz, when that MTV broadcasted with them, and that whole vibe of that show, you felt like it could implode at any second on stage. That whole show, and I mean, that was what was so cool about it, though. I mean, they were looked at as like a dangerous band. They were, you know, heavy drug users and drinkers, and that's it was like Aerosmith Mach 2 at its heyday. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what was I think it was missing from rock and roll at that point. There was still at that point it was a lot of glammy stuff and a lot of, you know, new wavy weird hairdos with keyboard stuff too, and I mean that just kind of kicked it all in the nuts a bit and brought it back to more Americanized rock and roll like the good old days, I think.
Yeah, then it was all, you know, just if you got a cigarette dangling out of your mouth and a bottle of JD and you look like a biker rocker, then you get all the guys like Uncle Slam, Zodiac Mind Warp, Love Hate, and then Kiss, of course, took the image, Motley Crue took the image. You know, it definitely had an imprint, you know, left a scar across the face of music. All right, Ken, let's get to you in a pick.
Okay. Well, for me, not everything was always hard rock. I like all types of music. And when I started out buying albums, one of my earlier first albums I bought back in '74 was Linda Ronstadt, Heart Like a Wheel. And I just love that album. I mean, I'm not a. It has its country tinge, you know, country, you know, music style to it, but a little bit of pop rock, you know, it's a little mix. And though I was never really a, you know, country music fan ever really, but man, the way she performs and sings on these songs, and these are songs, of course, that, you know, she doesn't write these songs, but the way she interprets these songs written by other people are just fantastic. I mean, but this goes down as one of the, you know, the greatest. I think it's her greatest album that she's ever done. I think it goes down as that. I mean, it had, of course, the hits like "You're No Good" and "When Will I Be Loved," but there's so many other songs on there that were not hits that are just great songs.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. I told him happy
written
birthday.
by whether Hank Williams or, you know, there's even a Paul Anka song on there. Man, it's just, it doesn't sound like a Paul Anka song. It just sounds like she makes them her own. And I would listen to that thing over and over again, and I still listen to it. And one of the reasons I picked it too is these picks is I just you know, bought a turntable a while back, you know, some months ago, and I started listening to the Kiss albums again, you know, playing my vinyl, and then kind of rebuying Kiss albums too, other than the 2014 reissues. So some of the first albums I bought are the ones that I knew I would go back to and listen to over again. So I went out and found used copies of, you know, Heart Like a Wheel and some others, and so that's I know that I'm going to listen to it, and I love it. So
And
Yeah.
that's a really cool thing with Linda Ronstadt. I mean, I can't admit to knowing much of her stuff, but I do know her collaboration work with Neil Young.
mm,
And that's where, you know, I'd appreciate, you know, Harvest is a fantastic Neil Young album that she sings on, you know. So it doesn't have to stay in the rock and roll realm. I mean, I came from a background, like I said, Duran Duran, Men at Work,
yeah,
John Lennon, and the Beatles.
yeah,
So,
Beatles.
you know, we've lost Lonnie for now, so I'll get into my next pick, which was the Sex Pistols. And Never
Mm,
Mind the Bollocks would be that pick because it sounds fantastic. It's got everything of any consequence on it, but I can't put it up there in my Holy Trinity because it doesn't have Glenn Matlock on bass. Obviously, Steve Jones did all the bass because Sidney, not so vicious, didn't know which end of the bloody instrument to hold at that point. He plays a little bit on one song. But there is the bootleg album, which is now officially released, Spunk, which has all the sessions with Glenn on it. It's just the seminal punk album for me. I know the Ramones predated a little bit. I know there are other bands that are of an equal stature. But punk wouldn't have gotten half the mileage it did without a band like the Pistols, because, come on, the Clash were anything but dangerous. And that's probably the other big band from British punk that comes through. We don't need to get into talking about the Damned or any of the minor players. It was the Pistols. The Pistols drove the scene. The Pistols started a movement. The Pistols had the material as well. They knew how to play well enough. Were any of them virtuosos? No. But they captured it. Whether you've got John's vocals, his lyrics, whether you've got Steve's guitar, Glenn's original bass is absolutely incredible. It's just pure rock and roll with an overlaying of teen anger for the time and the period, of what was going on in England at the time. So it's a social statement. It's an anger. It's a sound. It's a pissed off young rock and roller. And what it gave birth to is so much greater than what it was. So that's what makes it more important to me. I can listen to that album any day, and that goes the same for Nevermind the Bollocks, because I can just throw either on and listen to them all the way through, and I just smile. I grin at the humor. So, Mark.
Yeah. Well, before I go to my next one, I'm going to say, though, if you really like that record, they have a really excellent DVD out, the making of Nevermind the Bollocks. They had a VH1 classic album series, and it's really, really fantastic. They go back into the studio, they put up the tapes, and they show you what they did for the recording of it. They have Steve Jones in there talking about the making of the songs. It's really, really good. If you're into that album and you like the Sex Pistols, you must go and get it. It's excellent. Now, getting back to my pick really quickly, I have another one that this inspired me to just pick up the guitar. The first time I heard this band, and the first time I actually heard this record, I was completely floored. Whether it was the just complete sheer doomness of this record or the complete bombast of it, and it was one of those records where if you had a darkened room, and it could bring you into that spooky place if you let it, and it's.
Oh, hell yeah.
So
Nem's pressing. Wow.
Yeah. This is a pressing that I got not long ago. I was hunting for this one. And just for all you people who are interested in looking there, it is a red vinyl version of it. So, and it sounds really, really good. And beyond the fact that it's a red vinyl, I mean, this record, whether it's on any kind of vinyl or on CD or on cassette or whatever, this to me was what made me go out, buy a Marshall stack, I got my first copy Les Paul at that point. I think I was like 14 years old. And I just sat down, put this record on, and just spent hours, like 8 hours a day in my room learning how to play guitar because of this record. Okay. And what was great about this, and if there's anybody out there who's thinking about even starting to play guitar, this, Paranoid, even the first record, is a great place to start because it's really cool music, but it's not overly hard music to learn, especially if you already have a basic grasp of guitar playing. The riffs are really cool, but they're not like, it's not like trying to play Yngwie Malmsteen. I mean, this is just like riffs that you can sit down and play. If you give yourself the time and sit down with your guitar, you could pick up songs like Iron Man or Into the Void or, I mean, Sweet Leaf.
Sweet Leaf. I remember learning how to play that one, listening to that album.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just essentially 4 chords in that song, but they sound awesome. And in the context of Geezer Butler's bass playing, and Bill Ward's drumming and Ozzy singing, I mean, it makes for a really awesome record. And I mean, at that point, sonically, they had to jump up too because the first record was done in like 8 hours at a little 4-track studio, and that's one of my favorite records. The first Sabbath album, it's fantastic. But then Paranoid, they went up and they had a little bit more time, worked at a little 8-track studio. But this is the first record that they did at an actual 16-track studio in England, so it does have a bit better sonic quality to it, and I'm so glad it did because some of the low end and the low tuning that they use in this, like they're down tuned to C sharp in some of these songs. Like Children of the Grave is like a drop C sharp, and that's like pretty low. I mean, that's like elastic bands for like bass guitar, right? So, but I mean, it has such a great tone to it. I mean, you put that now on, vinyl and put it on your stereo and turn it up, it just shakes the walls. And I mean, that's what it's all about. I think when you're young and you start getting into rock and roll and heavy metal music, and it makes you want to go and pick up your guitar and play. That's what this album did for me, and it still does it for me now. When I put it in my car and I'm listening to it, when I get home, I'll always go and pick up my guitar and start playing afterwards.
That's awesome. And, the key thing, I guess, as musicians is when you're learning how to play, you got to learn how to walk before you can ride a bike. You got to try the 3-chord stuff first before you get to the more... you don't start off trying to play Rush or Yes, or King Crimson or Blood, Sweat, and Tears. You don't start difficult. You start with the hairy guerrilla music like the Sabbath, and come on, Kiss as well. Pick up a Kiss album and try and play something off Dress to Kill. I mean, come on, or Hotter Than Hell. That is not complex rock and roll. So that's a great thing on that side of things. So let's get to one of your picks before we wrap up as well.
I'm gonna say one of my picks is Ozzy Osbourne's "No More Tears" album from '92, and it seems like everything I pick is from '91, '92 around in there, but. I guess something was really going on with me around that time.
So you're still a 14-year-old man-child.
I think so. If you ask my wife, I stopped maturing about the time of 91, 92.
Well, we're men. We all did.
Exactly. But I love that album. No More Tears was. It's another one of those albums, in my opinion, that is just fantastic. From start to finish. Ozzy sounds incredible on it, and Ozzy's not much to see live, and even back in the early 90s wasn't much to see live even 25 years ago. And Zach's guitar work on there is absolutely incredible too. And Mike Inzez is on there as the bass player, and Randy Castillo is a drummer on there. That's like an all-star band that Ozzy has on that album. But the songs on there are incredible too. And it was about probably my introduction to Ozzy too. So maybe that's why that album just sticks out to me when I was going through and thinking of different albums by different artists. What are your guys' thoughts on that album? It's my favorite Ozzy studio album, even more than Blizzard of Oz and that early stuff with Randy Rhoads. Just I guess because of my age when it came out, but. That album to me is with Mr. Tinker Train, Mom, I'm Coming Home, and then The Road to Nowhere, how it ends, I think is fantastic. And then it was supposed to be Ozzy's last tour. Well, this is 26 years ago. Ozzy's still touring now, but it was supposed to be Ozzy's retirement tour. My brother went to that show. He came home with a shirt that said No More Tours Tour 1992. It's kind of funny. Ozzy's still out touring today with Sabbath, but I think Sharon will keep throwing Ozzy out there as long as she possibly can.
Well, they'll prop him up on stage. It'll be
I think so,
a weekend at Bernie's with Ozzy.
Oh, I think so, too. I think Sharon will keep throwing him out there even after he's dead.
That's the first Ozzy album I skipped buying.
Really?
I just couldn't be bothered with it. After No Rest for the Wicked really grated on me after a while. There's a couple of really good songs on there. Crazy Babies, Demon Alcohol, Stand Out. It was just Zach... was so one note. I remember seeing the video for No More Tears. I was like, yeah, this is a really cool song. And it is a great song, no doubt about it. But it was just, there was nothing that made me really, it didn't grab me and make me go out and buy it. So I stay in the past with Ozzy. Ultimate Sin for me was very much kind of like the highest he developed, and because of the material that was being written for him by that point. So go backwards from Ultimate Sin to Bark at the Moon to obviously the Randy albums, and that's all I need from Ozzy. Afterwards, it's No Rest for the Wicked is the cutoff point for me. I didn't bother. I've never owned Osmosis. I've never. I think I've got Black Rain for some stupid reason. I've got the Japanese import of that. I didn't buy what it was. That other one, Shout or something.
Scream.
Yeah. Well, whatever.
That's pretty bad.
So Ozzy, just got a little bit too pathetic for me. So.
Interesting.
Well, honestly, I mean, for me, my favorite guitar player was always Jakey Lee. I mean, I know that's usually rubs people the wrong way in the Ozzy camp because they say, what, not Randy Rhoads? It's like, well, I love Randy Rhoads, but Jakey Lee to me kind of connected a bit more as a player. I thought he was a bit better of a writer in some aspects. I thought I liked his overall playing a little bit better. But, I mean, don't get me wrong. Randy Rhoads is like, he carved out a whole another niche for guitar players. I mean, he's fantastic, but I don't know, there's just, how it is. It's just something connects you with somebody for whatever reason. You can't even explain it, but I really like Jakey Lee. But this record, I actually liked it a lot better than No Rest for the Wicked. I mean, I really like Dwayne Barron and John Purdell's production. I've always liked their stuff. They did a Dream Theater's Awake album as well, and there's a similarity in sound between those two records if you were to put them side by side and A/B them. And I mean, that's obviously has a lot to do with them and their production style. But I thought that Ozzy had a little bit better overall picture of his songs on this record only because of their involvement, I noticed. Because if you watch, I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary that was made around the making of this record.
Don't blame me.
Yeah, they were involved a lot in the lyric writing. They sat down with him and went through the lyrics. And Ozzy, I remember, was in one scene that was really cool. They were going through some of the lyrics, and Ozzy looked at him like with this really weird look. He goes, "Do I have to keep singing this devil shit all the time?" Like he was kind of like, wondering why he has to do. And I mean, they really sat down and went through the stuff with him, to kind of grab what's familiar about Ozzy and kind of push it a little bit, But I thought No More Tears as a song even was Ozzy stretching a little bit out of the norm. I mean, there's that whole breakdown in the middle with that orchestra section, which has one of Zach's better guitar solos that he's ever played in there. And I thought that Randy Castillo was a great drummer. Mike Inez was good too. But don't forget, there's a lot of ghost work on that record too by Bob Daisley, which nobody knows. Well, not nobody knows. Obviously, I know, but a lot of people.
Wait, you just told a secret.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Well, a lot of people are probably not aware of it, I guess, right? That he was in there ghosting a lot. And, I even heard rumor that Geezer Butler got brought in for stuff too on some of the recordings. I don't know if it was this record or a record before that, but, that was happening on here too. But Mike Inez is a great bass player. I mean, there's no need to have to defend him. He's great, and he's a great bass player. But I think overall, this record to me was better than No Rest for the Wicked. I think it just sounds better. And then, it also helped that he had Lemmy write a couple of one of his better songs on here too, like Mama, I'm Coming Home. And I think there's another one on there too. Hellraiser, yeah. There you go.
All right, I'm going to throw in my final pick. And I could easily go with something very predictable like Def Leppard High and Dry, AC/DC Power Age, or Stained Class by Judas Priest. But in terms of Holy Trinity, there are just certain albums that grab me, and I can't really tell you why. But this one's Def Leppard related, and since it came out, I can't remember whether it was 2000, 2001, it has been played on at least a weekly basis. And it's not even their own material. It's the Cybernauts. And it was a side project by Joe Elliott and Phil Collen with Trevor Boulder, Woody Woodmansary, and who's the other guy? I can never remember. Dick Decent from The Damned. And it is a tribute to Mick Ronson, who obviously as a guitarist is incredibly important as a musician. It covers a lot of Ronson-era Bowie stuff. some stuff off Ronson's solo, and they threw in some Jimi Hendrix and other stuff just because they can, some Lou Reed, which... So it is an absolutely killer live album. Watch That Man, Hang On To Yourself, Changes, Superman, 5 Years, Cracked Actor, Moon Age Daydream, Angel Number 9, Gene Genie, Life on Mars, The Man Who Sold the World, Starman, Width of a Circle, Ziggy Stardust, one of my all-time favorite songs, White Light, White Heat, and it's this version because I can't stand the Velvet Underground, but they give this song something that I'm just like, wow. And Rock and Roll Suicide. So they do a couple of studio songs on the second disc, including All the Young Dudes. So you've got Bowie, you've got Ronson, you've got Lou Reed, you've got all these artistic things rolled up into Def Leppard as well as the original Spiders. And it's an album I've never been able to step away for very long. So as much as like I said, those other albums are, the Cult, Love, which are albums that mean a lot to me. This is just probably the top of the top because of what it was in, and especially nowadays with Bowie being gone and so many of these old rockers going on to have a band of this quality put out an album that was, unbelievable. And there was another Mick Ronson tribute done that Glenn Matlock and some other bands, did material on. Joe Elliott and Phil Collen also showed up on that one. But you can't hold a candle to this particular one. So Cybernauts, check it out on YouTube because it, for me, is really an incredible album. 18 greatest hits. So, Ken, one more from you.
One more. Yeah, like you were saying, Julian, I could have went, like you mentioned really quickly, High and Dry. I could have picked that one easily. I could have picked that one. I could have picked Van Halen's first album. I could have picked, what was the other one? Back in Black, that sort of thing, because those are just solid albums. But the next album I'll pick is 2112 by Rush, which is I remember the first time hearing it, I was in someone's car and he said, "Oh, listen to this," and he started playing this. I was like, "Oh, what's going on?" There's some synth or whatever going on at the beginning, and then all of a sudden it just kicks in and it goes crazy. And then when Geddy Lee starts singing "The Temples of Syrinx," yeah. I'm like, holy cow. It was such a shock to me, but it made me, whoa, okay, this is different. This is something new, and it was cool. And then just recognizing right away the drumming going on behind this band was just, I'd never heard any drummer play like that, before or since, really. So the way that, so I bought that when, as soon as I could get my hands on it, and the first whole side is 2112, the one whole story, and I felt it, man, this band's, they're playing is top notch on this. The story, the lyrics are top notch. It's it's more thoughtful. You're thinking. It's story driven kind of song. But then on the second side of the album, you get they can write these 3 to 4 minute songs that are great, catchy, hard rocking tunes. So that was just an album that I keep going back to and got me into Rush. So because I started buying their back catalog the same way I was doing Kiss when I got into them.
Well, I gotta tell you something though, Ken, real quick. I don't know if you're aware of this, but have you seen the CD, DVD, Blu-ray deluxe edition of 2112?
I seen it, and I think is it on sale? Or something
you know what?
today?
I got it, and I'm telling you, if you like 2112, grab it. When you put the DVD in, they have a matching comic that goes through the whole story of 2112. Like they do like a whole story thing with the whole album. Like they show like the whole story of 2112. It's in comic form as the song plays. It's really, really well done, and they even do it with the other songs like Passage to Bangkok. They show like a train going through and them smoking joints, and like it's all kinds of stuff like accompanying with them with the song. It's really, really well done. I would suggest
be sure to pick it up, because what's funny about that, you say that, is I got a notice or something on Facebook about that specific album, CD, DVD, or Blu-ray is on sale today on something. So I'm like, hey, this is like, I guess now I have to get it. So.
Yeah, there you go. Now you have to. All right, Lonnie, one more from you.
One more from me. That's tough because it's tough to say just one more. But for me, it's an album that you guys might be unaware of or might not even heard the band. It's a band called Silvertide, and the album's called Show and Tell. These guys are from Philadelphia. I don't know if you guys ever heard of them or not. If you haven't, go ahead and look them up. They're fantastic. I've seen them a few times. They've come through town. They broke up a while back. But do you go on Spotify or something and look them up? It's great. Listen, it's a great album from start to finish. It's really hard, gritty rock from start to finish. There's a song on there called "Ain't Coming Home." It's the lead song on there, and the reason why I know of them is that they opened for Velvet Revolver actually in 2004 when I saw them, and we're all there. Everybody's there obviously to see Velvet Revolver. No one ever heard of the opening band. Usually, you just kind of whatever through them, and they came out and tore the place up like I've never seen an opening band do before. And like their lead singer, he jumps into the crowd even at one point, and it's like, that's pretty ballsy for the lead singer of an opening band to jump into the crowd. You don't know how the crowd's going to respond. And they closed out their set with the first song on their album called "Ain't Coming Home." And these guys had such great stage presence that by the end of the song, they had the crowd sing along with them to a song that no one had heard before, to an album that hadn't come out yet. It really, I was really taken aback by it that these guys were able to do that to a crowd who wasn't there to see them, didn't know anything about them. So they had like an EP of stuff for sale, and I went and bought it that night, and then I went and bought their album when it came out, and it's incredible. You guys should take a listen to it, and people listening to this, take a listen to it. They're called Silvertide. They're from Philadelphia, and the album's called Show and Tell. So maybe that's an odd pick, but it's an album that I listen to all the time still. So
no such thing as an odd pick.
Yep.
Everyone's got their stuff. I mean, you go into my iTunes, you're going to find lots of Marillion. You're going to find lots of Marillion. You're going to find some Pet Shop Boys, some Spandau Ballet, Simply Red, Simple Minds. There's all sorts of stuff. I'm not getting tied to listening to one genre of music. I've got stuff going back to the 50s. I got, Elvis, lots of Elvis, so what's that?
That's King Crimson, Lark's Tongues and Aspect.
That's way out of my realm.
I love that record. That was one of the other ones I was really, really hip on and was a huge impact. Just really quickly too, just this one too. Yes, Relayer.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, incredible band. I've only ever owned, Yes's greatest hits. So, All right, we've gone way, way, way off topic today. With that just tells you a little bit more about us as some of the guys you see on the show a lot of the time. So it allows us to introduce ourselves musically. Where our ears have been over the years and where they still are for that matter. To give you a better feel for us as not only Kiss fans but as hosts on this show. So let's wrap it up there, guys. Mark, thank you. Lonnie and Ken, thank you all. Share some of your holy trinity of Kiss albums, or what are those ones outside of Kiss that you like, on the Facebook page, or come over to the KissFAQ message boards and share your opinion there. Because we've all come from different places to be fan, and it's a great way to get a read for other people by knowing how they got into these albums and what those ones are. So take a lead from the questions we've asked ourselves today, and hopefully we'll see you on the board. But if not, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.